thank you all for coming to our first ever The Rugby Summit. Right, gentleman in front of me, no introduction needed. I've known Nic Tyson for many, many years, and he is the head coach of Wisconsin Rugby Club. Among his huge accolades he has. He's going to be talking about 90-minute training sessions today. They're not going to take 90 minutes to do his presentation. We've plenty of time for questions and Q&A at the end. We will be keeping things on time today, so we'll be moving on to the next sessions after this one. If you need anything, share your email, things like that. Yep. Contact information, we can get that. Sure. If not, I'll be in the back. You don't need to pass your CU cards because that's for professional conferences. And Nick, they're all yours.
Cool. Thanks, Dan. Just starting out, guys, I just wanted to acknowledge the event. This is the first time I've seen something like this in Wisconsin. And just a quick call out, if you get a chance to see one of the people with the white polos like Jan was wearing, just thank them. I think we're hoping to keep this going year.
As you come in, years.
I think the effort will raise the level of rugby in Wisconsin, in the Midwest, and the U.S. So just thank these guys with the white polos. Todd doesn't have a white polo, but he's part of it too.
We just want to remind everybody, pull out your cell phones quick and put them on silent, please.
Especially, so Rich Bergman was the one being the president this year, and just a note, if you look at your program, Rich is on pictures on page 1 and page 2, so the benefits of leadership right here. Just for this session, I'm really hoping that this will be a two-way experience as much as possible. I don't want to be talking the whole time. The way I approach this event is if I'm not learning something in each session, including this one, then it's a waste of time. So if you guys have a note, have a call out, disagree with something, please just let me know and we'll pause and kind of talk through that. Like Dan said, my name is Nic Tyson. I'm the head coach of the Wisconsin Rugby Club. Just a little bit of my history. I started playing in high school. My high school football coach told me that I had to either play a sport in the spring or run track. I chose rugby, and within a month I was a rugby player, not a football player. I just love the game, love how you use your mind, love that it's physical. I have been playing for 23 years, and I still find myself on the field from time to time, but I'm trying to limit those opportunities. For people that have switched over from playing to coaching, for me, it was a loss of that really visceral competitive feeling on the field. You're there hitting, you're there passing, playing with your teammates. It was replaced with kind of that cerebral joy, that feeling when you see someone pull something off on the field that you've been working months or years for. That's a really, really satisfying feeling. And so that's kind of what I work for. Did anyone else make the switch from player to coach and have either that feeling or something similar or even different? Yeah, anyone want to kind of describe your differences? No big deal if you don't want to, we can move on.
Kind of proves you know what you're doing a little bit.
Yeah, it's nice to actually prove that you know what's going on upstairs, absolutely. Anything else? Joy with working with the players? Yeah, I love working with players, pulling something off, coming with something collaborative, and then seeing it on the field. For me, I've been lucky over the years. A lot of people in this room knew me when I was in my early 20s. Ben's a good example. I was a pretty rough teammate early on. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. I was lucky because there were people around me that were willing to be patient and let me mature and grow. And I would say I became an adult in my late 20s, so it took me a while. But I try and use that to understand younger players, the problems they're having, the personal things they're going through, and just give them the space to grow. Right now, I want to start out with a little exercise. So I'll explain why we're doing this in just a little bit. But if everyone can find a small group of 2 or 3 or 4, what we're going to do is 3 times we're going to have an objective. One in your group is going to be the communicator. They're going to try and describe something to you, and you're going to try and figure out what that is. So find a little group of 2, 3, or 4 quick. Okay, and while you're doing that, pick who's going to be your first communicator. Okay, pick who that's going to be. All right, so first time through, you're going to have 5 seconds. The communicator is going to try and describe their favorite fast food restaurant. You can't say the name of the plates or the names of any of the menu items. So no names like that. You're gonna have 5 seconds to describe it, and they gotta come up with the answer. Ready? Go. Stop! All right. Now, communicators say what, or actually before that, not communicators, listeners say what you think it was, and find out if you were right. Okay, raise your hands if your group got it right. Okay, pick a new communicator. You got the second time coming through. All right, the second one, you're gonna have 10 seconds. You're gonna try and describe your favorite actor using only movie titles. 10 seconds. Ready? Go. All right, stop. Figure out if you were right. Okay, raise your hand if you got it right. Sweet. A little bit more. Okay. Third one, this is the last one coming up. Pick your new communicator. All right. This one, you're going to try and describe your favorite international rugby team. Okay, so England, South Africa, New Zealand, something like that. Except there's no talking and no mouthing. You got 15 seconds. Go.
I don't know that.
All right, stop. Time's up. Okay. Time's up. Raise your hands if your group got it right. All right. Even better than the second time. All right. So I try and do something similar to this at the beginning of every practice session. I like the group over here. I saw that last one. He just wrote it down. I didn't say that you couldn't do that. I like trying to find ways to break the rules or fudge the rules to win the game. Any other strategies that groups found to be effective for these?
Nershel didn't pick his actual fast food, but picked the one that's the easiest for us to guess.
Okay, so he cheated.
Yeah.
That's part of rugby. Absolutely. Any other strategies? Yeah. I think communication's a super important part of the game. Every single level, that's verbal, non-verbal, just knowing each other. So I'll kind of revisit this in just a second. For me, the beginning of a training session is super important to kind of set the standard for how that training session is going to go. For your different clubs or your different teams, what's important to accomplish in the first 10 to 15 minutes of a training session? Energy? Yep.
Body's warm.
Intent? Well, sit back there.
Get the body's warm.
Yep. Get your body warmed up. Others?
Alignment.
How do you mean alignment?
Get them in synergy.
Yep. Yeah. Synergy, getting on the same page, absolutely.
Wait for everybody to get there.
Getting bodies on the field, absolutely. Good call. Cool. It's going to be different team to team, and it's going to be different session to session, obviously. For me, my most important things to happen at the beginning of a training session is body activation, brain activation, and setting a high standard of player engagement. So what I mean by that last one is I don't just want someone there in body. I want them ready to go and then ready to be mentally engaged in that training session. We didn't really touch on it, but just a quick slide to point out who uses static stretching at the beginning of a training session. That's awesome. I love seeing no hands in the air. The more studies they do on static stretching, it's really good for elongating muscles, but it's not good for warming up the temperature and getting them ready to do dynamic exercise. So the more you can do, dynamic warm-ups, movement, not holding a position isometrically for 15 to 45 seconds, try and stay away from that kind of thing. All right, so right here are the things I think are important to address at the beginning of training. Again, muscles should be primed for power and explosion. They should be lengthened and warmed, but not through static stretching. For me, the other side of the screen there, rugby became my favorite sport because of the mental aspect. You know, I'm a big guy. I came from football. When you're a big guy in football, you're told what to do at every moment of the game. Okay? Rugby, I got to think, I got to pass, I got to make decisions, and that's why I love the sport. So I think it's important at the beginning of the game to do something like that communication exercise we did. For the WRC, it doesn't look exactly like that, but we think of different ways to get people thinking before we get into the body of our training session. Any questions on that? Couple of examples of, yeah, what's up?
I was just gonna ask for
Examples, yeah, totally. So one of the things we do is we'll get a partner, so it'll be me and someone else right here, and we call it a rock, paper, scissors race. So we'll just do rock, paper, scissors. The winner runs to their right, the loser runs to their left. So they should be running the same direction, okay? And the point isn't to win the rock, paper, scissors, it's to win the 10-meter sprint after you find out who wins. Okay, so that's getting your brain working really quickly, decision making, and then firing the muscles after making that decision. So that's just one example of what we'll do. Cool. I'll have some examples of our training plans at the end of the slideshow. So now, moving from the beginning of training into the body, the meat of what you're trying to work on, what are things that you're trying to accomplish? And obviously there's a ton of different answers, but you can speak generally, you can speak specifically. Any answers for what you're trying to accomplish?
skill building.
Yep, absolutely. Building skills.
Cohesion.
Yep, team building, getting on the same page. Anything else? What's up?
Their game plan, like your offense, your defense?
Yeah, get into the X's and O's, get on the same page, try to pull off patterns, try to pull off your strategy on defense. Does every training session for your team look the same? No, you're doing different things on different days. Rugby is a very dynamic sport. You're going to be working on different things week to week to week throughout the season. For me, it's more about what aspects are necessary at each session. So what are some more general ideas? How do you want the training environment to feel? So what are some words that come to mind?
Intensity.
Intensity?
Engage.
Yeah, game-like, for sure.
Focus.
Yep, focus.
Somewhat fun.
Fun. I love fun. So who in this sport is a professional rugby player or a professional coach? Okay, so if it's not fun, people aren't going to care. People aren't going to try as hard. People aren't going to give 100% effort. So I think fun is one of the most important aspects. So for me, those three answers are fun, active, and competitive. Okay, if you can accomplish those three things, it really doesn't even matter what the details are. Your players are going to get better every single session. Okay, if they're having fun, they're going to work hard. If they're competitive, they're going to try and beat each other. You know how young rugby players are, and just make sure it's active. Don't be standing in a circle. One of my least favorite things is standing in a circle and talking. I feel like if you're talking for more than 2 or 3 sentences, the eyes go to the ground and people are disengaged and not paying attention. It doesn't matter how important the thing is you're saying. Just a little call out, New Zealand youth rugby doesn't split their players by skill or talent until high school, okay? So their focus is about making sure the kids have fun and stick with the game. And that's worked for them, obviously. What are some ideas of how we can make training sessions fun, active, or competitive? Games, 100% games. Anything you can turn into a game, it doesn't have to be remotely related to rugby. If you have a game where players are trying to beat each other, they're going to be trying hard. Others?
We play coaches against the kids, and that makes them more competitive against us.
Sure. In what kind of contest?
When we play touch at the end.
Sure. So I think that's a great example. The kids are going to try and beat the coaches every single time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Others? Cool. No worries. We'll get into the next one. Again, for me, the more I can avoid, our team is 40 or 50 players staying in a circle talking. We're wasting probably 90% of those people's time. Like, your people that are engaged mentally are always going to be engaged mentally no matter what you're doing. Okay, I'll be getting into other things specific to 90-minute training, but what do we try and accomplish when we're closing training sessions?
Review what you've done.
Okay, review what you've done for sure. Others?
Tie it at the end of the match.
Say it again.
Like tie it, like we did this because it's gonna help you in this situation.
Sure. Connecting the activities you've been doing to how it's going to relate on field. Others? Cool. For myself, we'll do our ball in hand, our gameplay scenarios, and we'll always finish with some kind of competition. Again, I'll have examples, but I like to have that kind of high energy feeling to closing a training session so that players come out of it feeling really excited, feeling really good. Even if they didn't win the competition, there's still that high energy going on. And the last thing I like to do is a player appreciation session. So that's the only time I'll kind of bring everyone in a circle. And the question I ask is, who stood out to you today and why did they stand out? Okay, put that on the players and not on the coaches, because it's gonna do three things. It's gonna be team building, so it's player appreciating other players. It's gonna signal to the rest of the team what's important to someone. If Curtis says, I really appreciated Phil because he's setting me up in good gaps, Phil knows, oh shit, I'm gonna give that guy the ball every single time, okay? People are gonna start running lines and getting that ball, okay? The last thing it does is it informs you as the coach on what's being retained by the players, okay? You're not gonna have to ask individuals, what did we work on today? You're gonna know what they remembered. Any questions on that notion? Any comments on it? Cool. So I'm moving into just an example of one of our training plans. They all kind of look like this. This is what the players see on our app, on our Facebook page. For me, I think it's important to come up with a schedule beforehand. If you don't come up with a schedule as a coach, you're gonna get in your own mind, we need to get this thing down. You're gonna spend 20, 30 minutes on something, okay? For me, I try and never train something more than 15 minutes. Again, you got young people out there, they're gonna be tired, they're gonna be, thinking and moving. You gotta keep their minds active. Personally, I prefer 90-minute training sessions for multiple reasons. I try to remind myself we're in an amateur environment, and so I wanna respect people's time. Everyone in this room has rugby on a different spot in their list of priorities, okay? You're gonna have a lot of people on your team that don't wanna commit 4 hours a week to training rugby. I want to respect those people, and I want them still involved with my team, okay? So we do 90-minute training sessions. My requirement to start a game is just make one of those sessions, and then if you wanna do extras, that's on you, okay? Outside of the 90 minutes, either before or after training based on the light, we'll do a 30-minute skills session. We'll all work with players either individually or in small groups. So if they want that extra 30 minutes, it's there for them. Any questions? So I've got this as an example. Call out terms if you don't recognize them. Call out games if you don't recognize them. We can go into detail. I've got a couple other examples of training plans. Anything you see on there you want me to explain?
Yeah, no, I just had a question about, you said the one training, you have to make one training a week to start, like, do you kind of specify which one that would be so you get all the players there together that can form a more cohesive unit, or,
Sure.
or what?
No, that's a good question. So I don't specify which one it is just because, we have an adult club, and so some people are going to be able to make Tuesday, some people are going to be able to make Thursday. What I do is I try and have kind of the same general idea of what we're training on both days, just through different drills, through different games, stuff like that. So, even for the forwards, this week we're working scrums, this week we're working lineouts. Just so if you're only making Tuesdays, you're not missing scrums every time. You know what I mean? Other questions about training plan? Cool. I'll go into a couple other examples. And if you have questions like who in here, other than players I know what knife hands is? Okay. Phil, you want to demonstrate knife hands? Okay, so we'll do this at the beginning of training. We'll do 10 seconds on, 20 seconds off. I'm trying to kill him, he's trying to kill me. Go. Okay, and so that's body and brain activation at the same time. Okay, it really fires your upper body. You're doing both push and pull, gets your core going. We're only doing 10 seconds on. It's really quick. Okay, just in that warm up, we have a competitive thing going. Like, I'll be out on the field yelling, "Finish him," just to get people to try a little bit harder. Like, it's stupid and it's silly, but it turns guys' brains on right away. So again, I'll go to the next slide. I've got other examples.
Tyson,
What's up?
what's Rhino Dingo?
So those are some of our terms for our attack. Rhino is you've got your pot of three, the middle guy gets the ball, the inside guy loops around and catches the ball behind C. So A catches behind C. Dingo, I kind of forget what it is.
Dingo's a cutoff playmaker to a pod.
Okay.
9 to playmaker to pod.
Okay, yeah. Dingo's so off of 10. I'm sorry, my computer's giving me problems here.
ABC thing makes sense with.
Any other questions on that training plan there?
Yeah.
What would the poaching competition be?
Yep. So poaching competition, great question. It's one of our guys' favorites. You get two people, you get a ball, and you put it on the ground in the middle. They're both kind of leaning over it, and you yell knees, shoulders, hips, and then ball. And they're both going for the ball. If you get it between your legs, you win. So we'll do a single elimination tournament with poaching competition. Again, that's something right at the end of practice where we're just trying to have a little bit of fire, a little bit of competition, and then end after that. Sorry about the technical difficulties.
While you're getting that figured out, so at what point, either in your season or in your session, do you start talking about grander things of what you're trying to accomplish with the team? So your offensive philosophy, something really kind of high level. I know you don't want to circle talk, but at some point you kind of want to get everybody on the same page as to, okay, we're kicking, we're attacking in this zone, that sort of thing. Like, when do you do that? Is it a part of the season? Is it a part of you work it into every session? How do you do that?
No, great question. So the question is, when do you talk about broader strategy that you're trying to accomplish with the team, at what point in the season do you talk about it? For me, it's as early as possible. So I'll try and meet with a player leadership group, decide, are we going to try and play a wide, expansive attack, or are we going to play kind of procedural and just look for opportunities? After we decide how we want to attack, I'll start to build different tactics, build different training plans, and I'll approach it day one. So we didn't work on, Rhino and Dingo right away in the season. Those are a little bit more complicated moves. We'll say, we're trying to get to this really expansive attack. We've got to build these smaller group skills to be able to do that, but these are the steps that we're going to take to get there. So I'll describe the bigger picture right away, but then it's saying this is why we're going a little bit more slowly through it. Yep.
Do you mind elaborating on what your player leadership group looks like?
Yeah, so it's looked different with every single team. When I was in a college situation, I would have, the senior players, the people that have been there for a long time, and they're like actively engaged. They're the ones reaching out to you about game film. They're the ones reaching out to you about strategies and tactics. You want to get the people that want to be there in that group. For the Wisconsin Rugby Club right now, I would say it's probably a group of like 5 to 8 people. And you say, hey, how do we want to play it? How do we think we can play? What do we think will be effective? And then you kind of come to a consensus with that group. So it's your more senior, but try and pull young people in that you think are mentally engaged, because you're going to build a lot of trust bringing those younger people in there.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah. Other questions? And just go to another slide with more examples of our training plans. So these are the ones that I send to the players. I'll have another example where I'll be more detailed about what I'm looking for and what I want to accomplish. Again, you won't notice that we're doing anything for longer. I've got 20 minutes there, but again, we're doing multiple things. We're never doing something for more than 15 minutes. Keep the players moving, keep them thinking. Does anybody not know what I mean by chaos there? Everybody knows what chaos is?
No.
Oh, no, okay. So that's one of the biggest tools I learned at Lindenwood from Coach Macy there. It came from, I believe, professional soccer environment. But basically, you want to be in a game-type situation, and it works if you don't have 15 against 15. You can do smaller groups against smaller groups. But basically, you're playing rugby, and you can have any kind of parameters that you want. So we'll start from nothing, and I'll just kick a ball, and we'll start playing rugby, or start from a lineup, scrum, kickoff, something like that. And then it's basically going through phases. You can do tackle if you want. You can do just two-hand touch if you want. For this session, we wanted to work on our kickoff receipt, and so we started from kickoffs, and the only parameter was groundwork. And so every time you got tagged, you had to either crawl on the ground or roll, just so the groundwork prevents the defense from putting hands on that ball. Okay, so if there isn't groundwork, I've got another ball in my hand, I blow the whistle, throw it over my shoulder, that's the active ball we're playing with. The thing we were trying to accomplish is, how do we respond to chaotic situations? And then our defensive strategy was just putting pressure on the attack to create those chaotic situations. Other questions about that, or about chaos specifically?
What's your passing competition?
So that looks different ways at different times. So we'll do forwards against backs, and we'll just line up across the field, and we'll say you have to get it down and back twice, and whoever wins, and we'll do best of 5, best of 3. I usually have cookies that I bake. Today my wife bakes them, but I bake them, and I'll bring them to practice, and that'll be the prize for winning the competitions at the end. Even if it's something small, having that little prize, it makes people work just a little bit harder.
What's kick tennis?
Kick tennis, so you get, again, we'll do forwards against backs because that's easy to do. You get between the 10 meter and the 22, and you can choose between the 15s, the 5s, or the sidelines. You can have one ball, you can have, I've done up to 4, and everyone kicks. It's got to go, above a certain height, and it's got to land in that box. If they catch it, nothing happens, they kick it. If it drops, the closest person is out. And you're trying to win. If you're out, it can be, 1 forward against 6 backs left over here. And that's a pretty funny situation when they got 4 balls. Yep. So I would say chaos is where I spend the most time in the body of our practice sessions. It's ball in hand, it's game situations. Obviously, it's contrived game situations, but you're getting players into places where they're making game-type decisions. But again, I like to split it up. So we'll go chaos, we'll do some kind of tech zone where we're working a very specific skill or specific situation, and we'll come back to chaos. So for people that have done the level 200 course, that's the whole part whole that they're talking about there.
What's your opinion on level of contact in your sessions, and does it depend on time of the season, number of players you might have, that sort of thing?
Sure. People that didn't hear my thoughts on contact in training, and does it matter time of the season and type of players? I think you have to train 100% contact at training. I feel like if you don't do that, you're not properly preparing your players for a game. I think you're putting them at risk. Personally, I think we go full contact every other week, 1 session every other week. We'll have contact in other places, but again, it's an amateur situation. I don't want to overdo it with our players. I know a lot of teams go with 1 session every week as your big contact session, your big collision session. But I go once every other week, we'll go 100%. It definitely, you taper down towards the end of the season because the players' bodies are already prepared for it. But that's kind of how I approach it.
For like post-winter and like getting guys back into the rhythm of things, do you have like certain strategies as far as getting them in condition? Do you still put a lot of game scenarios into those practices, or if you don't, it's just strictly training? How long do you generally train the guys for until like you start transitioning towards gameplay?
Yeah, I like a lead up of somewhere between 4 and 6 weeks before you're playing games. I think you can build a base of fitness in about 6 weeks. Ideally, you can get some kind of workout plan, some kind of fitness plan. We're lucky, we got a guy that owns a CrossFit gym, and so he'll just throw together a body weight program for our guys. you're not gonna convince everybody to do that work in the off season. You know, again, amateur sport. At our training sessions, they're pretty much the same beginning to end of the season. We'll change some how much time we spend on each individual session. But I don't do much dedicated fitness stuff. I feel like if you properly plan your sessions, like you're running most of the time. And so then it's based on just the players putting in the effort at practice. So no, we kind of approach it the same way all the way through the season. You just focus on different areas as you go along. Yeah, good question. Okay. Is there any desire to see more training plans? This is actually the end of the presentation. I just got the questions slide. Any kind of more general coaching questions? I'm lucky I've got experience high school, college, a little bit of USA stuff, and then men's club.
Typical conditioning workout that you would do and how much time you're spending on that?
So again, the WRC, we don't do any specific conditioning at training. When I was at the UW, we would do what I learned from the Scottish called Malcolms. Malcolms are amazing, like total body fitness. So you start on the midfield line, you do chest to ground, run to the 10, chest to ground, run to the other 10, chest to ground, run to the middle, chest to ground. So it's 40 meters of running and 4 burpees basically. And when you get good at it, you should be doing like 10 to 12 of them with like equal time work to rest. So every 30 seconds you're blowing your whistle. It's killer for people that aren't fit.
You do a modified Bronco like that?
Yeah. Yep. Broncos that's what Lindenwood did. We did the guys did a Bronco every Monday.
Share your thoughts on building confidence, either at the individual level for that player who's just not uncertain in a tackle, for example, at the small unit level, and then at the team level, and how you might kind of work that into your practice session.
So specifically in the tackle area?
Well, just anything that somebody or even the whole team needs confidence in, and how you build that confidence up, and how you work that into a session.
Okay, so building confidence in individual skills and then building that into confidence in the team. For me, part of my maturing, part of my progression is getting way more into the psychological side of coaching. From the reading I've done and what I've experienced, I believe in like 90 to 95% of your feedback should be positive. So if I'm telling Joe, like if I'm giving him feedback and I say, don't do that again, he and everybody know one thing not to do. If I kind of don't say anything when he does something wrong, and I see Ben do it perfectly, I say, Ben, great fucking job. Do that every single time. Everyone in the room sees what he did, and they try and mimic that. So that's kind of about preserving your own voice, is try not to do the don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, and try and save your voice for that was perfect, everyone, let's do it like that. Because that's going to be much more impactful and build a lot more over time. Kind of long-term versus short-term.
Just to help add on an answer that I've seen you do in practice, I play for Tyson. If we have something where as a team we need to get better at, he'll throw it into the chaos session.
Yeah.
So you'll see a lot of like the chaos notes will change week to week because last week against St. Louis we really sucked at X. So instead of saying like, hey, we were bad at this, we'll just see in the chaos plan for next week, one of the rules is the thing we were bad at. And now we're all like, oh.
Did that answer your question or not really?
Yeah, it did. I kind of have a follow-up to that. So I've been coaching a while, and what I've done as far as building confidence, but I want to bounce it off you because I don't know if it's really effective, is those games and things like that, those competitions, I build in success for whatever it is we're trying to do. So even if it's an offensive drill, I'll give the offense more players than defense as an example.
Sure.
The problem that I think that there might be with that, kind of thought your eyes on that, is that build unrealistic expectations for what's actually going to happen in a game? Because you're not going to have an overload every single time you have the ball, for example.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the tough part about coaching that part of it, because you want them to be confident, but you don't want to expect those unreasonable expectations of it's going to work. It's on the coach to do your best to really simulate what it'll be in the game. So I think you're right early on in giving the offense more numbers and being able to pull that off is important to build that confidence. But at some level, you've got to switch over and give the defense more numbers and say, we're not being successful because we're missing technique in the breakdown. We're not being successful because the ball carrier is not using groundwork. You know, it's kind of on the coach to have that progression. And we'll do this a similar thing, like right here, we're doing 10 versus 8, attack versus defense. If the defense is smoking the attack, we'll take defenders out of there. If the attack is smoking the defense, we'll take attackers out of there. So it's being able to kind of mix up those numbers, those parameters. Same thing in the same spot. If the defense is having a really hard time getting set, then you start saying every single tackle, I'm going to count to 2 or count to 3, and the scrum half can't play the ball until that count is done, something like that. So changing tiny little parameters of what you're training will kind of try and accomplish that, I think.
When you're doing opposed things, say, especially if you're looking at like first team, second team stuff, do you try and mix up the skill levels there, or in terms of the cohesion, trying to get those first guys going?
Sure. So that's it's going to be different answers at different points in the season or different points in the year. So specifically for our club, I looked at the fall. It's about building. That's our competitive season. That's about building the ceiling. So we'll do more separation between our D1 and our D3 side. In the spring, we're not working towards any kind of championship. We'll mix in the groups because that's building our floor. So I think that's the way to look at it. What are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to raise the standard for the whole team, or are you trying to raise the ceiling for that top side? So, if you're only talking about the fall competitive season, early in the spring, mix it up. As you get later, start to isolate a little bit more. That's how I approach it. Jim?
Yeah, so I come from a team and I coach a team where we're hard on numbers, and because of that, people don't show up because they know they're going to start anyways because we don't have enough numbers to bench them.
Yep.
How can you reward the players that come and try to encourage the players that don't to come to practice because they should, not because they have?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I would say there's a lot of teams across the spectrum that deal with that. The first thing I do is try and make the training environment as enjoyable as possible. So have the competition, have the games, have rewards for people that are being there, like cookies, food, whatever. Do you have the bandwidth, player skill level to give the more desirable positions to the players that have been there, or are they already kind of specialized?
They're already pretty special. I mean, on the team that I play on, we've got 3 kids.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's tougher. I would say you've got to hammer on making the training environment be as fun and as desirable as possible. So the more games you can do, the more competition, and with that many people, it's not like you're training 15 against 15 anyway, so why get into the 1-3-1? How are we going to attack the whole field? Make up little games to play with 4 to 8 people where it's going to be competitive and you're still working rugby skills.
Because on the team that I coach, we have more kids show up, but it's still not enough to bench enough players.
Sure.
Where there's no incentive to come to practice.
Yeah. Yeah,
and we struggle with gelling as a team and getting teamwork together because of that.
So, for that one specifically, I would say as many games as you can do, not rugby related, and then a big part is what I talked about, the player appreciation at the end. So get your players to call someone out who they thought either did a great job or did a great job helping them do better that day, because that'll kind of encourage those positive interactions. There's no easy fix to that situation. It's more about building that culture, and that's, you're going to set up those situations, but that's going to come from the players. You want the players we wanted. Yes, Steve?
One thing that might help is finding the right captain.
Yep.
I think that's key.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out. So Steve said part of what will help is having the right captain. It's exemplifying the players that you want the players to look to. So when I got back to the Wisconsin Rugby Club, the captain I picked, and I've been on teams where I want them to vote, but I've been on teams where I want to pick it. I picked a guy that I wanted them to play like. He wasn't the best player. He's not the best player now, but that's who I want the players to look to when stuff is going wrong, when people have negative feelings. That captain has to be the one that makes them want to try harder, makes them want to be positive.
Could you talk a little bit more about implementing more of the basics into your practice plans? Like in the adult club that we have is just started out, within the recent years. So we have a lot of players that come on who have never played before, never touched a rugby ball before. You have some people who played in college and are playing again. So how do you kind of mesh those together and implement basics with people?
It's a great question. So obviously you're going to have to lay a groundwork first. I wouldn't want to approach it as that's all we're doing for the first couple of weeks, because again, you're going to turn people off and they're going to disappear. I think you do 5 minutes of basic passing, and then you do some kind of ridiculous game where it doesn't matter how they pass it. Like we do, is it on here? We'll do a game where it's just like a 10 by 10 grid, and the whole idea is just keeping the ball alive on your team. So I don't care if it's a rugby pass or a hook shot or whatever it is. It's just keep the ball alive. Because in that game, you're using communication, you're using space, you're working on ball skills. Like it's all being used, and you're going to build rugby skill even though it's not at all rugby. So I would do the basic stuff for 5 to 10 minutes, no longer, because again, people's minds will just turn off, and then do something fun for the same amount of time, and just do that the whole way through is how I approach it. Is that effective for an answer?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Kind of add on there, something that we just tried out the last couple of weeks for winter training that the team has had a lot of positive feedback on is some differentiation where we've got the main thing that we want to work on, but say, hey, anyone wants to work on the basics of this, whether it's passing, whatever, we've got a group over here, we've got something set up for you as well. So they've got something that's also active and engaging, but it's less dynamic and less, maybe less oppositions that they can succeed a lot easier to work on the basics.
Cool. Just looked at my phone. We're at about 42 minutes in. If people want to bail, go use the bathroom, get something to drink, no worries. I'll be here the rest of the time to keep answering questions. If you want to see more of our practice plans, I've got our attack and defense presentations that we run. Like I'm happy to share whatever you guys want to see. Yeah, but use the time. I'm available.
You get your own. Yeah, your own stuff, son.